Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 94. My name is Professor Eddie Rivkin, and I am joined, as always, by Professor Chris Chapman of Fox Sports Vegas and the Vegas Golden Knights pre- and post-game show. This episode, like all others, is brought to you by the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, by my very good friend, Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, and by the greatest attorney in all of the 702, that's our guy, Joe, at Marathon Law. If you want to still be able to do a podcast every week like Chapman and stay out of the pokey, you need Marathon Law. If your ex has run off to the circus and you need a good divorce lawyer, you need Marathon Law. And there's a whole bunch of other things they do over at Marathon Law. So that's Joe's plug for the episode. As you can tell, we have anointed ourselves professors. So it's midterm week, Mr. Chapman. The Golden Knights aren't exactly at the 41 game mark, but fuck it, close enough. They've got a busy week and we want to do another episode, so we're off. Same format as before. Let's keep our answers fairly short and succinct. We are going to judge the Golden Knights based on their offensive play, their defensive play, their power play, penalty kill, goaltending, coaching, overall. Then we're going to give away some tickets, or we're going to tell you how to get some tickets from us. And I'm going to sneak one last question that we haven't rehearsed at all in at the very end. No predictions this episode. Straight recording, straight report card, rather. And we're off. Chapman?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the offense. What do you got?
Well, I gave them an A, and here's why. It's pretty simple. 3.54 goals per game. That is fourth best in the NHL behind the Capitals, Lightning, and Winnipeg Jets. So, I mean, I don't know how you can look at the way that they've produced points, the way they're scoring goals. And my main contribution is points from defensemen. They're in the top 5 in the league in terms of points per defenseman, which is pretty fucking impressive, especially considering they were not very good in that regard last year. This is an area where they have improved, I think, in a major way. Like I said, your top 4 in the league in goals per game at 3.54. Scoring from the blue line is really damn good. I mean, I don't know if you paid attention. I know you did, but the people who were listening, my agenda on, what was it, Saturday night, was to elicit responses from Bruce Cassidy and Noah Hannafin on why their blue line scoring is up. And, basically they're much better in transition. They're much better on the rush. They've got elite scoring defensemen. So A for me, Eddie.
Well, this episode probably is going to go down as the shortest episode in the history of Hockey Nights in Vegas, because I think we're going to be pretty close on all of our scores. Those stats are all wonderful. To me, the key stat of why they get an A from me as well is going into the season, the big question was, where are the goals going to come from? No Marchessault, no Stevenson, no Amadio, no Carrier, no. Oh my God, the sky's falling. The Vegas Golden Knights, where are they going to get their secondary scoring, and who are going to have career years? The answer to that question is, let's see, Brett Howden, Keegan Colasar, Pavel Dorofeyev, Ivan Barbashev. The fact is that they were a little bit top-heavy at times, and teams could match up and defend against them. But now the Golden Knights, regardless of how, what lineup they ice every night, are a serious threat to score up and down the lineup. And the fact that they are now a significantly more difficult team to defend, where a team can't just roll out their best defensive unit, is the key to the kingdom for me. And the fact is that they've done it all, icing the lineup we expected out of training camp only 3 times. And they're doing it with a PTO player in Tanner Pearson, with I guess it's fair to call him a career I can say that, a career AHL player in Tanner Lazinski, who scored his first Golden Knights goal a couple of nights ago. And, a waiver wire pickup in Cole Schwint, the only player who hasn't hit the score sheet on the goal side, but for a kid they picked up off of the waiver wire and they fought to keep on the off of the waiver wire, he's been rock solid. So the offense is an absolute A. There's really not a lot of debate. If you want to debate it, just bring it. The other thing that I wanted to talk to about your point when you were talking about the defensive scoring, and I'll move on pretty quickly, is we heard a term for the first time from Bruce, not the Buffalo game, but the game before. And I don't know if you picked up on it or it resonated with you, but the term is fourth man ice. Now, for you folks, that's a pretty complicated, deep in the weeds hockey term. Fourth man ice is the fact that when the defenseman joins the rush and the forwards drive the net and push the defenseman back, that defenseman's ice is called the fourth man's ice. That's the open area that allows those RD guys the high danger shots and the ability to pass uh, and complete plays. Fourth man ice is something we're probably going to talk about if the D scoring continues on the pace that it is. And it's a fantastic, simple reason why the D is scoring so much. They're putting so much more pressure on the defenders. They're a great rush team to begin with, but when you add a great rush team with a Noah Hannafin, with an Alex Petrangelo, with a Shea Theodore coming into the high slot at full speed, the defense has very little time to react, and we're seeing it in the results of the offense. So an A from Professor Chapman, an A from Professor Rivkin. We are off to category number 2, the defense. You can lead on this one too, Chap. Go for it.
Yeah, I went with A plus in this one because look, there's a couple different ways to look at this, but this team, since Mark Stone has come back into the lineup, let's just say right around the beginning of December, they have been unbeatable in terms of goals against. And, you looked early on, those first few games before they went away on the road trip, they weren't giving up a lot. They go away, they have that first road trip. It's a little bit of a bumpy start. But since then, and more specifically, since the beginning of December, they are allowing under 2 goals per game. It's not a shock. This team has won, I think, 12 of their last 16 games in regulation. There's an overtime win in there as well. They've beaten some really good teams in this stretch. They are not giving up anything, nothing. And I think a lot of it starts with a healthy Mark Stone. It starts with the 200-foot game of Jack Eichel. It's obviously the defensemen that are, doing their job really well. And it encompasses the goalies as well, because as we'll get to a little bit later, they've been pretty fucking good as well. So, look, it's simple. They have just been really tough to score against. They're not giving up anything. The other night they lost to Montreal. They only allowed 3 goals. That was probably more to the offense ineptitude than it was. Well, I guess it was a combination of both, but I think it was more from the offense kind of not putting anything past Montembeault. But Eddie, defensively, they've been really damn good. It's hard for me to go anywhere other than an A plus on the defense.
I was sort of teetering with A minus, but I think that I settled on A. Listen, it's going to be difficult to find a ton of flaws with a team like the Golden Knights, who's at the top of the table. But they have been guilty of a whole bunch of bad starts. They've given up a whole bunch of first goals. They've missed their alarm, on quite a number of occasions. And that is, it's not coaching, because like Bruce says, once they go over the boards, it's up to them to do their jobs. But they have shown the occasional lapse. And listen, this is hypercritical stuff right now, kids. They're playing rock solid defense, 16-3-1 in their last 20, a boatload of regulation wins, which counts as the tiebreaker when we get down to March and April. And assuming that probably Edmonton is going to be knocking on the door in the Pacific, and the 3 really big teams in the Central, will be vying for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference and home ice and things like that. I would just like to see them answer the bell every night. I'd like to see a good first shift. Remember in years past, Pete would always start the fourth line, and it was always about setting the tone, right? Let's start. Let's get going. Let's move our feet. Let's go and let's move it. And they've done it enough. I mean, look at the record. They've done it enough, but they just seem to be a little bit laissez-faire sometimes. And I understand the human tendency when you're up 2 or 3 goals in the third period is to take your foot off the gas. It came back and bit them against Montreal, so much so that, when you asked Bruce, he said he was pissed that he was pissed. Those were 2
Yeah.
points that they should have had. And that's about as direct an indictment of their play that night as we'll probably ever get from Coach Cassidy. So listen, you can't argue with success. Recently, they've tightened up. They're allowing less than 2 goals a game. It's a race to 3. That's what Todd McClellan, the new coach of the Red Wings, said. If you play the Golden Knights right now, it's a race to 2 because the chances are you might not be getting a swing at 3, let alone a swing at 2. So to me, it's an A. Again, this episode is going to be honest analysis, but it's hard to be critical of a team that's at the top of the table.
Well,
So
there's something else.
Go
Something
ahead.
else with the defense, and Bruce mentioned it the other night when I asked him about the scoring. And one of the things he mentioned was continuity. And for the first
Sure.
time in a long time, this team has had a stretch of games where they have had all 6 of their, what I'll say, regular or
Top
top
6.
six
Yeah.
defensemen available for a long stretch of games. So, I think as more and more of that grows, the defense is only going to get better. It's hard to get better than where they're at. But yeah, you mentioned there's some things that they can improve on. And I think as long as they're healthy, they're going to be really, really tough to score a lot of goals on.
They're going to fulfill, which is, I don't want to say promise or prediction, but he said his goal was for them to be the best defensive team in the NHL.
Well, they're
And
pretty damn close.
with again, not counting injuries, they're well on their way to being, if not the best, certainly staying in the top 5. So before we get to special teams, let's have a quick word from Dr. John Pierce at Ageless Forever. I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Pierce. We're going to talk about cool sculpting. Back in the old days, it was liposuction. But then if you see the after pictures, they're entirely bruised up. People look like just death, and the recovery is brutal. Nowadays, there's this thing called cool sculpting.
Cool sculpting is really cool. It's non-invasive. Medical term is cryolipolysis. Basically what happens is fat cells freeze at a higher temperature than the skin cells or other cells in the body. We can freeze the fat cells and not damage any other tissue around that. Those cells will die. They go what's called apoptosis or programmed cell death. They basically disintegrate. The body sends in white blood cells that gobbles up the remnants and it deposits them in the colon and down the drain it goes. Depending on the amount or the area that you're looking to do, it may require 2 or 3, maybe even 4 treatments. It's really, really inexpensive, very, very effective. So if you've got problem areas that diet and exercise aren't taken care of, you got that little pooch or you got some love handles that you want to address, cool sculpting is the way to go. Not a weight loss thing. So, if you got problem areas that are bothersome to you, we can target those and get rid of the fat in that area.
This is non-invasive. You come in, you lay in a comfortable chair, the gals take care of you. If you need a little touch-up, you don't have to be vain, so I'm considering it. If you want to consider it, send a message to the gals, www.agelessforever.net. Make an appointment. The first consultation is free. They'll walk you through the entire process, www.agelessforever.net. Send a message, take advantage of the free consultation. Wouldn't be bad to look better naked, would it? Okay, chap. Let's move on to the next couple of categories. That's the special teams. The power play, and the penalty kill. I'm going to lead with the power play. I gave it a B, but it's trending downward. They're 1 for 16 or 17 in their last attempts on the power play. They started off gangbusters, 30+%. Obviously, that's not sustainable, but teams are either seeing the bumper play that is the Vegas goal to play, down low to Stone into Hurdle and into the back of the net, basically. Um, but I think that you have to be careful when you talk about this power play because I'll put an interesting stat out for you that might be a stat. The Golden Knights are the least penalized team in the NHL, but they're also drawing the least amount of penalties in the NHL. Yeah, that second part might not be exactly correct, but they're in the top 5 of penalties drawn. So it's not like the power play is getting 3 or 4 swings or bites at the apple every game. They're getting 1, maybe 2. And power play is all about repetition. It's been said to us numerous times. The only reps that they're really getting on the power play are in practice right now because they're really not drawing a lot of penalties. And that's kind of surprising to me for a team that's hyper aggressive offensively and pushes the pace and pushes the play and forces defenders, like we talked about in the defense segment a little bit early. But I think that it's a B. I think that, listen, they've already shown they can. Now it's just a matter of showing that they can get back to it. So for me, it's a B. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I went with a B as well for a lot of the same reasons. It did start out really well, but 1 goal in their last 8 games on the power play. I do think there's something to what you're saying about teams recognizing what they were doing with Hurdle and Stone. And, it seems like Hurdle's maybe been a little bit neutralized the last bunch of games here. But the key to this, as you mentioned, is they're not getting opportunities. And Bruce talks about that because listen, people want to see goals on the power play. And the reality is, you look at their numbers, it's still really good. They're basically 1 goal for every 4 power plays they get. They're right
Yeah.
around that 25% margin, but it's what have you seen lately? And lately, the power play, for whatever reason, just has not been clicking. And whether it's opportunity, whether it's guys being injured, whether it's teams recognizing what they're doing, for whatever it is, they're just not scoring right now. And my thinking is that kind of comes in waves. Sometimes you're really hot on the power play, sometimes you're not. And they're in a stretch where things aren't going well. I expect that they will probably with opportunity start to score a few more power play goals, but
And
you need
health.
those. Well, you need those opportunities. And what kind of worries me looking in my crystal ball here, and not just for the Golden Knights, but for a lot of teams, is the teams that are clicking, you're going to have this 2-week break coming up. And I don't know if it's going to be like starting over for some teams with the special teams because of the long break. But right now, we're just talking about what we've seen at this point, and I'm going to go with a B. I think it's solid. I think it could be better with the players that they have that they field, especially on that first unit. The second unit, forget it. They don't even get opportunities.
Yeah,
So
they get the ceremonial last 20 seconds of it, and that's about it.
yeah,
Maybe a minute if they're really lucky.
but I think it should be better. It's good. It's better than it's been in years past, but I could see room for improvement. So I'm going to go with a B.
On the penalty kill, I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to say that it's a B, but it's trending up. They were a little bit porous for a good part of the season, but in the last bunch of games, it has been just a devastating penalty kill. Yes, the 2 shorthanded goals in 24 seconds was huge. But in general, and this probably goes to your point at the very beginning of the episode, when Mark Stone is in this lineup, everybody kind of slots just a tiny bit differently. Even the players that you don't anticipate getting special team time, Keegan Colasar getting PK time, right? Never seen that before.
Yeah.
They have rounded into form on the penalty kill, and that to me that's a B, but it's trending upward. Their pairs are set up just perfectly, and they are not only defending on the power play on the penalty kill, but they're once again showing that they are a threat offensively. If you get laissez-faire or you make a lazy pass, the puck is going to be, if not in the back of your net, there's going to be a prime 2-on-1 scoring chance or a breakaway. And the Golden Knights are very much getting back to form on the penalty kill that we thought they would have from the beginning. So I'm going to go with B and a rocket ride pointing forward, north.
Yeah, I also went with a B. And you know what? There's really not a whole lot I can add to what you said. I think, they're doing it in large part without Nick Waugh recently, who has certainly in the past been a big part of their penalty kill. But I think you look at the players that they use on the kill, and they're all really good at what they do, but they're all highly, highly intelligent players as well. And I think, as you mentioned, they've been pretty good lately. Yeah, the two shorthanded goals, but I think the way that they've kind of closed out games, and I know it doesn't technically count as a penalty kill, but outside of the power play, I think it was at Philadelphia scored on Thursday night where it was a 6-on-5, and then they pulled the goalie, or I'm sorry, it was a 5-on-4, and they pulled the goalie to make it a 6-on-4, and they scored that power play goal. But even the way that they've closed out games at 6-on-5, they've been really good as of recent. And so I think that's an area that's going to continue to trend up. I mean, this team seems to be all bought in on the defensive play. And I know that technically isn't defense, it's special teams, but
But they
they're
are
getting
defending.
and they're not giving up a lot. I think, when you're only allowing 2 goals a game and you're shutting teams down on the penalty kill, it kind of sucks the will out of teams when they get behind, because they know that their road to get back is a much higher mountain to climb than a lot of other teams that they're playing against. So, look, they've been really good. I think they're going to continue to get better. And I mean, by the end of the season, this may end up being an A, the way that they're trending and the way that they're playing.
So before we get into the last 3 topics of the report card at midterm, let's talk about the golden giveaway, chap. You want to tell the folks how they can pick our pocket for some free food and tickets?
Yeah, well, certainly courtesy of Joe Riccio and Boris over at Marathon Law. They do a great job. This is now the second time that they've supplied us with tickets. So we're giving away tickets for the 26th of January, or Joe, I guess, is technically giving the tickets away. We're just, the third party in that. So listen, check it out. Obviously, we need you to like, subscribe, share, comment. I believe the comment for this giveaway is Stone.
No, let's do a new one so we can see how many people, because these
Okay.
people, folks, you can enter as many times as you want. If you comment on every episode, you get extra entries. Let's use Jack. Right? Jack's a good one.
Jack is a good one.
Jack's a good one.
Had a
Please
goal and an
continue.
assist the other night against his former club. But anyway, so in order to get the tickets, you need to like, subscribe, share, and comment with the word Jack on this episode to be entered in the drawing. If you want to go to the game, you're going to have to go to Marathon Law. Listen, it's easy to get to. It's right down there in the medical district, not far from UMC. And what's the other hospital? I don't even know what. No, I don't know. There's another.
There's
Valley.
another one.
Yeah, I think it's Valley Medical Center. But just go to his office, pick him up, tell him you won the tickets on the Hockey Nights in Vegas podcast. Obviously, they will have your name, so don't try to bullshit and just show up. But
and be camera ready.
Be ready. Be ready to take a pic. And listen, they're great fucking seats. And it's a rematch of the last 2 Stanley Cup champions, or a rematch of the 2023 Stanley Cup Finals. So no bullshit games here, right? Like no Anaheim or fucking San Jose or Ottawa. Actually, I thought we gave tickets. So no, we did not give tickets away for Ottawa. But it was Carolina that we gave tickets away for. Another really good team. So another team from the Southeast rolling into Vegas. And, again, thanks to Joe and Boris over at Marathon Law. And you'll get dinner with these two good looking guys.
Handsome sons of bitches we are.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about goaltending. I'm going to lead because I listen to the NHL Network religiously in the morning when I'm doing my day job. It's a nice distraction from when I'm working. In the last few days, across the NHL Network, our good friend Sean Burke has been getting a ton of props about how well the goaltenders have been playing. Recently, a lot of the talk has been about Ilya Samsonov, and he had a difficult go in Toronto, and they said that a lot of it was probably between his ears. But whatever has happened in the goaltending room, it was a bumpy start. We acknowledge that. We could go back to the quarter season poll and see what the goaltending grades were. But since that time, Aiden Hill has shown himself as the legitimate best goaltender on Team Canada in the Four Nations. And Ilya Samsonov has been, with the exception of one stinker, the absolute perfect backup. I think the team has the utmost confidence playing in front of him that he's going to make the save or the saves when they need him to make the saves. And Aiden Hill has rounded into, dare I say it, Stanley Cup form. He's cool, chill Hill, and he's seeing the puck. He's tracking the puck. He's making the saves. He's doing every single thing that you could possibly expect out of the goaltenders. I would give it an A, but I'm grading over the entire 40 games. So with the slow start and the big, it would have been way less than an A, but it's been an A plus in the last 20. So I'm going to give it an A minus. Again, trending northward. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I went a little bit higher. I went with an A. Listen, Ilya Samsonov made comments the other night after his game in which basically he indicated that he felt comfortable from the minute he walked into City National Arena. He's been a part of this team, and I think he's showing. He's a very good number two. He's been phenomenal as of late. Like you watch these games, and I don't think there's any real drop off from Hill to Samsonov. He's been that good, and Aiden Hill, he's the best Canadian goalkeeper in the NHL right now. Like
Period.
there's zero debate about that. I know Binnington's been good. There's a guy in Washington who's been pretty good.
I can't remember his name.
There's a guy from Montreal who played really well the other night against the Golden Knights, but that's probably more due to them as opposed to him. Nonetheless, Aiden Hill's been phenomenal, and I don't think that it's even close as far as who should be the number one for Canada in the Four Nations face-off. And you mentioned Chill Hill. There might not have been a more defining Chill Hill moment than the other night against Buffalo when he takes a penalty in the final few minutes of the game, and he came out, played the puck that was out of the trapezoid. So of course that's a penalty. But during the timeout, Aiden Hill is leaning back against the goal cage and he's having a laugh. You could see it on camera with the referee. So he was relaxed. He was kind of silly. He's like, hey, you know what? I guess I fucked up. And he was laughing about it. And, I think he didn't give up a goal. So
Nope.
Kill Hill is back. And yeah, as you mentioned, I think he's at that form as far as where this team needs him to be. And look, we've mentioned the goals against numerous times during this episode. The last since December 1st, under 2. I mean, the defense is obviously a big part of that, but goalies still have to make the stops. And these two guys have done everything and more, I think, of what's been asked of them since this team got fully healthy. And I mean, they're still missing Barbashev. I shouldn't say fully healthy, but they're close to full health. And mean, the goalies are a big part of this team. They're a big part of Bruce Cassidy's system. And the defining statistic for me, or maybe not statistic, but when I watch these guys play, I think Ilya Samsonov is better than the cast of goalies that were the number 2 in the Stanley Cup year. Like, I really liked Laurent Brossoit. I think Samsonov is every bit as good as he was during that season. And so I think you have a clear defined number 1, but there's relatively no drop off to the number 2, which is kind of how it was in that season. And I think going forward, look, it's an A. I don't know if they can get it to an A plus, but man, they're on fire the last month and a half of this season.
Okay, so let's move on to the second to last topic on the midterm report card for the Vegas Golden Knights. That's the coaching. This is the easiest one. It'll probably be the shortest segment in the history of this podcast. It's an A plus, period, end of discussion. It doesn't matter which 20 people Bruce Cassidy puts on the ice. He will not get a vote for Jack Adams. You have Spencer Carberry. You've got the guy in Minnesota. You've got lots of other people who are pretty choices and nice choices. But the bottom line, in my humble opinion, is Bruce Cassidy's the best fucking coach in the NHL, and second place is quite a few steps behind. Whatever he does works. This year, he's shown more of a penchant to juggle the lines a little bit earlier. Previous years, he would be a little bit more staid and try to force it in with the way he was. They were going on a certain night. But this year, if they're not going good in the first 5 or 10 minutes, he's already got the mixing bowl and the chef's hat out, and he's stirring. The team, I mean, listen, they're the best team in the NHL for a reason. And talent is part of it. Execution is part of it. But I would argue that the biggest ingredient in the success stew of the Vegas Golden Knights is Coach Cassidy and his staff. And I mean, like I said, this is the short segment, so you can talk about it as long as you want, but I don't see there being too much else. Coaching is an A plus, par none.
Yeah, A plus for me as well. And I mean, I think part of what makes Bruce Cassidy such a good coach is he doesn't seem to be set in his ways. He seems to constantly be educating himself on how to be a better coach and how to better relate to his players. It's pretty fun to watch. He's great to listen to in the pressers because he's educational. He teaches us. And I can only imagine what he's teaching young players like Cole Schwint. Like, full disclosure, I had, and am guessing a large majority of people listening had never heard of Cole Schwint before they picked him up off of waiver wires.
You and I didn't, so that probably validates that.
He is a very integral part of what this team does on the fourth line. He's a center. He's highly intelligent. He seems like a guy who learns. Like, taking young guys and making them better players is a huge part of coaching. But I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because I think it's not just Bruce Cassidy. It's an entire coaching staff, whether it's the video coach, whether it's Sean Burke, Dom Ducharme, Joel Ward, who is unbelievably interesting to me because Joel Ward will watch the first period from the crow's nest with us, and then he goes down and he coaches the remainder of the game on the bench. Bruce had kind of alluded to it. I won't go into too many details as to why that is, but Joel Ward, another guy, John Stevens, this is a guy who had success with Los Angeles when they went on their cup runs. Their coaching staff is as good, if not better, than every other team in the league. There's no deficiencies. Dom Ducharme is a guy we never really talk about, but he took a horrific Montreal Canadiens team to a Stanley Cup final. The guy's a good coach. And my guess is he's going to be coaching somewhere in the NHL as a head coach again very soon. Joel Ward is another guy who is being primed to become a head coach in this league. So, yeah, Bruce is unbelievable and amazing, but I'm guessing he would be the first guy to make sure that he mentioned all his staff if he had that acceptance speech for the Jack Adams Award. He's going to mention all the guys I mentioned. And look, they're a team just like the guys on the ice, and they seem to be very close and they seem to really understand each other. And that's what makes this team what they are. There's the camaraderie in the locker room, and there's the camaraderie on the bench. And listen, he should win Jack Adams if this team continues to play. Look, they got 57 fucking points. We're not even at the midway point of the season. They are the only team in the league that has single digit losses. That's not just because they're unbelievable in terms of talent. They're unbelievably well coached. So I think, a lot of times the team that looks the best, the coach doesn't win that Jack Adams. It's bullshit that John Cooper's never won a Jack Adams award. I
Right.
don't
That's
think
proof
Bruce,
that he won't, but that's
yeah.
fine.
And I don't think Bruce really gives a shit if he
Guess what?
wins a Jack Adams. He
Hey,
wants to win another cup.
guess what? You don't get a ring when you win the Jack Adams.
No, you get a nice
You
little
get
trophy,
you
put it on
you
your
get a
case.
you get a pretty ring if you win the Stanley Cup. So before
Yeah.
we head into the last topic, let's get a more proper promotion in for Joe Riccio at the Marathon Law Group.
I'm here with Joe Riccio from Marathon Law Group. And Joe, one of the things couples make is they want things to be amicable when they go through a divorce. And a lot of times they'll use the same lawyer. Why is that a mistake for couples to use the same lawyer?
Well, thanks, Chris. It's definitely a mistake if you have issues or you have conflict in your divorce or your custody or your support, because naturally when a lawyer comes in, they're supposed to be defending your best interests against your spouse, which can be an awkward exchange. Naturally, if one party wants something that the other party doesn't want to give, now the lawyer finds themselves in a conflict. And that could be a problem, meaning that the client, the party, may not be getting the advice, the best advice that they need.
Okay, chat. Before we get to the last one, I'm going to throw a curveball in. There was a very interesting topic on the post-game show after the Buffalo game with our friend Ryan Wallace. The question was, which was the bigger trade in the history of the franchise for the Golden Knights, Jack Eichel or Mark Stone? So I want to spin that to you and ask you at the halfway point, because I think there's really only two candidates. Who's been the MVP of the Vegas Golden Knights through the first 39 games?
Ooh. Wow.
Stumped you threw a high hard one in.
Yeah. Listen, as much as I'd love to say Alex Pietrangelo, because I think what he's done this season is really damn good. He's been consistent, but it's not Alex Pietrangelo. He would be in that also receiving votes category. But to me,
Sure.
it's Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel is the best player on the team. He's the guy who night in, night out goes out and just seems to find ways to score points. I think he's one of the best defensive forwards on the team. He should certainly garner Selke consideration for what he's done. His 200-foot game has evolved to a point where I think we can call him one of the elite two-way forwards in the NHL. His leadership, it's Jack Eichel. I mean, I think, look, as much as Stone has been really, really good, he's missed a bunch of games, and Jack Eichel was the man carrying the torch when Stone was out. It's Eichel. I don't think it's particularly close. I think in that also receiving votes is Pietrangelo, and I think you certainly include Mark Stone as probably also receiving votes. But to me, it's Eichel. I think he's certainly a guy who, if he continues to play the way he has, should be in the Hart conversation. We are so fucking spoiled because we get to watch one of the top 5 players in the NHL every single home game. Just like the fans in Edmonton are spoiled with Draisaitl and McDavid, the fans in Colorado are spoiled. But listen,
Okay. I,
you could make an argument for another guy, but I don't
I'm
think
going to. I'm going to. I'm going to make the argument that it's Mark Stone. Everything you said about Jack Eichel is exactly 1000% spot on. Jack Eichel's the gas pedal. Mark Stone is the engine. They're a different team with Mark Stone in the lineup. You can't, that's undeniable. They are a more complete team, goal line to goal line, bench to bleachers, up and down the lineup. They are a more complete team. They're a better power play team with Mark Stone. He takes some PK time. He's not the most glamorous player. He's not the flashiest player. But I would argue that the processor, his hockey brain, is superior to 99% of the players in the NHL. He never makes a bad pass. His decision-making process, everything about his game is ultra, ultra elite. And the team with him in the lineup just has a little bit more of a swagger, a little bit edgier. Maybe it's a different kind of confidence knowing that the heart and soul. Now, listen, this is not a dig at Jack Eichel in any way, shape, or form. There's no reason to. He's going to have 110 or 120 points this year and should be a heart considerate, like you said. But there's something about this team when the heart, the soul, and the accountability is when Mark Stone is in the lineup. And Jack Eichel, it's been told to us a couple of times, has really stepped up in the leadership. He won't get to see. He doesn't want to see. He doesn't need to see. He's been a lot more of a verbal leader in the room. Bruce has told us that. Others have told us that post-game as well. But Mark Stone is the integral ingredient in why the Golden Knights are what they are now and what they've been basically since he got there. So a little bit of disagreement is healthy. It's always a friendly argument. All right, chap. Final topic of the midterms. Professor Rivkin and Professor Chapman here with you on Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 94, the midterm report card. You lead. The last subject on the report card is the overall performance of the Golden Knights through their first 39 or 40 games.
Well, it's an A. It's simple. Listen, I don't know about you. I don't know about the listeners, but for me personally, this team has exceeded expectations. We knew they would be good. We knew they would very likely be in the mix for a Pacific Division title. I didn't think that they would be the points leader in the NHL at this point in the season. I think anyone who says that is
Lying.
either, yeah,
Lying.
they're probably lying. When you lose what this team lost and you went into the season with the question marks, and certainly those questions have been answered. Ivan Barbashev, please, I want him back soon because we've seen him in the press box the last couple of nights. He's probably getting close, but it just makes this team better when he's out there. But what I'm getting at with him, he stepped up his game. He was probably on pace for 30 fucking goals. You look at he may get there. Guys like Keegan Kolesar, Brett Howden have stepped up. Obviously, Pavel Dorofeyev, I think he's pretty close, if not either at or very close to matching his career high in goals. I think there's things that this team is doing, and there's guys that help them win in other ways. You know, you wondered who was going to be the guy who blocks shots. Well, obviously Braden McNabb is there, but you see a more concerted effort with guys blocking shots. I mean, the goaltending has been really good, as we mentioned. To me, they have exceeded expectations, and my expectations were high. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they were going to be fighting for a wild card spot like they did last year, but they're better. They're a lot better than they were last year. And they lost a lot from that team. Maybe there were distractions, injuries. I don't know. But Eddie, overall, this is an A team. This is a contender for the Stanley Cup. This is a team that should play deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's an A. It's an A for me.
It's an easy A. I'll give you the biggest reason that it's an A, an overall A, is a few games ago when we talked to Bruce after the game, he said, this team reminds me of the team 2 years ago. You don't really need to say much else.
No.
If the head coach is bringing up the ghost of a Stanley Cup winning year, and from his eyes and his coaching staff's eyes, this season's team reminds him of that, that's big trouble. The bottom line is the Golden Knights can beat you any way you want. They can beat Edmonton 1-0. They can beat Edmonton 4-3. They can win big scoring games. They can win lockdown games. The reason this is an A is because the Golden Knights have effectively imposed their will just about every single night of the season. And we don't have to go back and rehash it. It's just the way it is. The Golden Knights at this juncture of the season are the best team in the NHL. There was one quick funny fact that I can't remember if Ryan talked about it or we heard it buzzing around upstairs. The amount of backup goalies that the Vegas Golden Knights are seeing when they come into the Fortress, it's almost like teams would rather play their better goalie when they have a more reasonable chance of winning. And the backup sort of gets served up here at the Fortress. And I hadn't thought about that, but I remember thinking we didn't see Connor Hellebuyck, and we hadn't seen a bunch of the starters. And somebody said they would rather go for 2 points that they think are more attainable and let the backup not fend for himself, but deal with the Golden Knights on home ice. And what a massive compliment that is when the other team doesn't want to start their best goalie. That's almost conceding a goal, right? That's almost starting 1-0 when their starters aren't in. Listen, this is an A. This was the easiest episode we've ever done. We had one disagreement about who the MVP is. Right now, if you're a Golden Knights fan, you're having a great fucking time, right? You get the occasional stinker or the half stinker versus Montreal. But as a general rule, if you go to the games, you're going there thinking you're going to get a happy outcome. And if you're on your couch in the recliner eating bonbons and listening to Dave and Shane, you're probably going to get a pretty good outcome as well. So let's wrap up episode 94, the midterm report cards. There isn't really much else to say other than to remind you of the Golden Giveaway. January the 26th, 5 p.m. puck drop at the Fortress versus the defending Stanley Cup Florida Panthers. Tickets provided by Joe Riccio at the Marathon Law Group. Dinner at El Dorado Cantina with Chapman and I, the two handsome bastards. That's us. You have to go downtown and not downtown, to the medical district, pick up the tickets. We'll do some promotional pickups,
by the way,
photos and stuff like that.
You're getting free parking.
Oh, yeah, and parking. So the Golden Giveaway, all you got to do is like the podcast, share the podcast if you can, comment. Jack, we'll use Jack for this round. You can enter as many times as you want. Every podcast, there will be a different code to get in. The winner will be drawn. You'll have a few days before the Sunday game to get down to Joe's office and pick up the tickets. We really do appreciate all the likes and the subscribes and the interaction and comments. I'm going to get Chapman involved, replying to the comments as well pretty soon. You can find us on Instagram. If you go to HockeyNightsVegas.com, it's a Linktree link where you can find the podcast on Apple, on Spotify, on iTunes, and just about everywhere else where you get your podcast. Thanks as always to our sponsors, the Las Vegas Advisor at LasVegasAdvisor.com, Dr. John Pierce at AgelessForever.net, and by the aforementioned Joe Riccio and Boris over at the Marathon Law Group. Episode 94, the midterm report cards, is in the books. We'll see you again next week.